Welcome back to Southwest Urban Homestead. One of the biggest hurdles in raising rabbits for meat is learning to breed. The act itself is simple enough. However, there are lots of little steps and nuances that are helpful to know to help make the process go smoother. When breeding, the first consideration is age. With larger breed rabbits, they need to be a bit older than the smaller breed rabbits. Males should be on average 8 months and females on average 7 months old. These ages aren't set in stone. However, to be sure, you should do a physical inspection of the animals you intend to breed. The first thing I check is the animal's weight. I don't physically weigh them, I just give them a good petting to see how they feel. An overweight or underweight animal may be sterile, or may not be able to conceive. So when I'm feeling the rabbit, I'm just checking for meatiness. They should feel firm, and I should be able to feel their skeletal structure, but they should not feel bony. The next thing I check is to see if the male's testicles have descended. It's very obvious if they have. Then I look at the penis. It should be fleshy, pink or reddish in color, and should be free of sores, scabs, and diseases. Next, I move on to the female. I check her vent. The vent will be a dark pink, red, or purple color. This means that the doe is ready for breeding. Now it comes to the physical act. It's important to bring the female to the male's cage. A male brought into the female's cage will be distracted by the new environment and scents. Additionally, the female may become territorial and attack the buck. By placing the female in the male's cage, she is surrounded by his pheromones, which help bring her instincts forward of her curiosity. You should always stay and observe the mating. An inexperienced and excited buck will often mount the female from whatever direction he can manage. Feel free to try and correct him. The female will usually play coy and run circles around the buck. If there is any fighting, immediately remove the female and try another day, or breed a different doe. While bucks are almost always ready and willing, does often are not. You can try a forced breeding. I personally do not do this. Any doe that will not willingly breed is culled. When the doe accepts, she will lift her rear when the male mounts. The act itself is quick, lasting only a few seconds. When a successful breeding occurs, the male will faint and fall to the side. Sometimes he will let out his grunt as well. I leave the doe for 3 successful breedings, then remove her and wait 10 hours, at which point I rebreed her 3 more times. Female rabbits do not have an ovulation cycle, so they do not actually go into heat. In a female rabbit, ovulation actually occurs 10 to 15 hours after mating. This means that the rabbit will not produce the eggs necessary for fertilization until 10 to 15 hours after her mating. This is why most breeders rebreed a doe several hours after the first breeding. To determine if your doe is pregnant, you can palpitate her after 2 weeks. Some breeders try to rebreed at 14 days. If the doe is pregnant, she will reject the buck. However, she can still be pregnant and accept the buck. That's why I do not recommend this method. A doe has 2 uterine horns. She can become pregnant in both at 2 different times. If the doe gets pregnant in one uterine horn and then is rebred in a test breeding 14 days later and gets pregnant in the other horn, serious complications can occur. You can have a premature birth, or you can lose both litters. After that, I go to my calendar and count 28 days. 28 days after I breed her, I put the nest box in. I typically put the hay into the nest box and punch a hole into it so she may get the idea. Some does will completely pull the nest material out and rebuild. Others will use the nest I made, and some completely ignore the box and make their own or drop on the wire. The next thing I do is count 31 days from breeding date and mark my calendar. A rabbit's gestation period is 31 days. Typically, the kits will be delivered on the 31st day, however, it can sometimes take longer. I've had a friend whose rabbit didn't kindle until the 36th day, so don't be dissuaded if it doesn't happen on an exact timeline. Nature seldom does. You should wait at least 4 weeks to rebreed your doe. Pregnancy is hard on the animal, as is nursing, so an ample recovery period is necessary to get the doe back to excellent health. Your doe will typically give birth in the early morning hours, but on the expected due date you should keep any disturbances out of the rabbitry. So no noisy chores, loud, rambunctious children, and no cats and dogs. A new mother that feels threatened will oftentimes eat her kits in an effort to preserve her life from a predator. Sometimes you will see blood and afterbirth in the cage. This is normal. The doe will often consume all or part of the placenta in an effort to regain some of the nutrients she lost while kindling. If there is any left, please promptly remove it. My very first litter I lost to ants, because they came running to the smell of blood. The kits will also still have this smell on them slightly, even after their mother has cleaned them. I walked into hearing them crying and saw that they were covered in ants. I did all I could to try to save them, but I slowly lost all 9 to the bites. If she dropped them on the wire, promptly pick them up and put them in the nest box, and cover with fur. Your scent will not cause the mother to reject her young. That story is false. If the kits have been on the wire long and are pale, not moving, and look generally dead, first try warming them. You should not submerge the kits in warm water. Yes, it's warm, but as soon as you remove them from the water, the evaporative effect will cause them to cool just as rapidly. This can kill the kits just as easily as not doing anything. It's best to hold them close to your chest or use a heat source such as an electric blanket or hot water bottle. You should wrap the kits in a towel and wait. It can take a surprisingly long time to bring a kit back from the edge of death. Assuming all goes as perfectly as possible, you should see a nice nest with a pile of fur and a proud, happy mama. If this is the case, remove the nest box for inspection. If the doe is territorial, distract her with a treat. Once you have the box, pull back the fur and inspect the kits. Again, your scent will not cause the doe to reject her kits. Count how many there are, and remove any dead or stillborn kits. The mother may not nurse the kits until the next morning, so on the second morning do another nest inspection. Remove any dead and check the kits' bellies. If they're full and round, they're being nursed. A mother rabbit will ignore her nest and young at all times except for nursing once or twice for a few minutes per day. So don't panic if you never see her interested in them. Sometimes a new mother may eat or destroy her litter for no apparent reason. Sometimes it's just inexperience. However, if a doe does it twice, she should be culled. A mating should produce at least 7 kits. If a doe produces less than 7 for 3 consecutive litters, she should be culled. However, if all of your females are producing small litters, breed them to a different buck. And if it's the buck that's producing the small litters, he should be culled. Alright guys, so that's how I breed rabbits. I hope you found this information useful, and I hope it answers a lot of questions for you new breeders. I will be doing an actual breeding video here within the next 2 weeks. In it I will show the actual breeding of 2 rabbits, and I will go over a lot of this information again, and probably in better detail too. But for now, this is just the general, so you have an idea of what it takes to get started. Hope you found this information useful. Have a good one.